Hey everyone, I'm your host, Dr. Robert Davis, and welcome to another episode of Unboxed, where we unbox the power and the potential of relationships. I'm so glad that you have decided to join us. Please stick around. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. Today, we're going to be unboxing how to build the Black family and how we can overcome and make progress even within the realities of America. So let's continue that conversation. Stick around. I'm Dr. Robert Davis, family life educator and relationship coach, and welcome to Unboxed, a frank and straightforward conversation about relationships. We're going to talk about family, church, workplace, and all other types of relationships. Join me for the next few moments as we unbox the power and potential of relationships and help you to live your best life. Hey everyone, so glad to have you here. Let's jump right into this. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. We're talking about building the Black family, and we've looked at all of the historical realities that have helped to shape the way that the Black community, the Black family functions and operates. We've talked about the psychological damage that has been inflicted on African Americans as a result of slavery and the long history of racism and its various iterations in this country. And we've also said, you know what? Two things. We can't cry over spilled milk, but we have to be aware. That was the first thing we talked about. The importance of being aware of the history and how it influences the way that we interact with each other, the way that we communicate, the way that we function, the way that we express our emotions or fail to express our emotions, etc. The second thing we talked about is accountability. And we said that because of the history of race in America, and the fact that the federal government, the United States government, which according to some politicians like Jim Clyburn and Kamala Harris and Tim Scott, Senator Scott, according to them, there is no race. America's not a racist country. The reality of the matter is America has done a whole lot of racist things. You determine whether it's a racist country or not. It's done a whole lot of racist things and intentionally kept Blacks out of the American dream and the American experience. We paid taxes, but we didn't have access to the various services that our taxes were supposed to provide. And so we're owed reparations, and we have a responsibility to hold America accountable. The second thing is, and I didn't talk about this yesterday, but I'll talk about it now. We have a responsibility to hold our communities accountable. So, hey, listen, this is the reality. We're not going to cry over spilled milk, but we're going to make sure that our communities are the best that they can be. We're going to hold our leaders and our communities accountable. But most of all, we have to hold ourselves accountable. And that's what we talked about yesterday. And I want to spend a little more time unpacking that, unboxing that today, about holding ourselves accountable. We are responsible for not only understanding what has happened, but we're responsible for making sure that we don't get caught up in wallowing in the past. It's one thing to know the past and to hold those who perpetrated and their descendants responsible for what happened in the past. It's another thing to wallow in the past. Because as I shared with you before, I have no reason to believe that there is ever going to be a savior for the Black family or the Black community, a human savior that's going to come along and just bail us out. One of the reasons we know that is because every time that a dynamic leader has ever stood up in the Black community, they have been demonized in the media. They have been imprisoned by the judicial system, or they have been murdered in this country. That's just the reality of it. So we have to ensure that we are working to build up our families and to use an old expression, pulling ourselves up by our own bootstraps. One of the reasons I want to talk about, we talk about accountable, holding ourselves accountable. As I hold myself accountable, then what happens is you cannot kill the movement. You see, you can kill a movement when one person runs the movement. And we usually look for someone who's charismatic and well-spoken and energetic to be the face of our various movements. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. But when you put all of your hopes into one human being, black, white, red, or yellow, when that human being dies or when that human being has human failures, then what ends up happening is the whole movement that they represent. So you take Dr. Martin Luther King before he was murdered. He was beginning to push for Black economic empowerment. He was beginning to talk about how we need to consolidate our funds, our finances, how we need to build up our communities, bank with Black banks, all of these other things. And so he gets killed, and the entire poor man's movement begins to wane and to falter and ultimately to fizzle out. But think about it from this perspective. If I say that I'm going to be responsible for not only my own economic empowerment, but for the economic empowerment of everyone in my circle, and each of us begin to think like that, I'm going to be responsible for the economic empowerment of my circle. Even if they kill me, what difference does that make? Because now the folk in my circle are still living out those principles. They're still buying Black. They're still putting their money in Black banks. They're still investing in Black education. They're still making sure that their people are the center of their, of their cause and looking to build up their own race. So one person dies, it keeps on moving on. So that's what I mean by accountable. But I also want to talk about it from another perspective, and that is a lot of things have happened to us throughout the years, throughout our history. But we also have to be accountable. And good evening to you, Kenny Austin, man. So good to see you. A lot of us have to be accountable for our own emotions. So we have to be accountable for our families, accountable for our the way we function, accountable for building up our people. Each of us doing it, you can't kill. I mean, unless you just decide you're going to commit mass genocide, which is possible. But hey, if we ain't got something to die for, then we really ain't fit to live. So another thing we have to be accountable for is our emotional health. I recognize, I am aware of my own family history and the various challenges that have been transmitted through the multi-generational transmission process. I recognize how my computer was pre-programmed before I was born, and then based on my community and my culture and everything else, the things that were placed onto this emotional computer and why I do what I do the way that I do it. But sitting back and blaming someone else isn't going to help it. So now I need to become accountable for my own emotional health. And that may be seeking professional help. I'm going to be accountable for my emotional health by seeking professional help to navigate this. I'm going to be accountable for my own emotional health by intentionally becoming attuned to my emotions and thinking through it when I do become emotional or when my emotions become very high and intense. I'm going to be accountable, not where I say, look what you made me do. They made me angry. They ticked me off. They did this, and I'm focused on someone else. I know I'm going to become more focused on myself, not selfish, but focused on myself and say, hey, you know what? I am accountable for the way that I respond when I'm angry. I am accountable for the way I respond when I'm sad. I am accountable for the way that I respond when I have this, that, or some other, issues going on in my life. I am going to make sure that I take accountability for my emotional health, but also I take accountability for the way that I express myself emotionally. Accountability is so vitally important for our community. We've been told for years, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Well, guess what, my friends? Everyone who's been telling us pull ourselves up by our bootstraps failed to buy us a set of boots and failed to give us any bootstraps. So you know what we have to do? We're going to have to take accountability for ourselves financially, emotionally, and spiritually. And I'm going to leave it right there. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. I'm so glad that you joined us this evening, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Take care.
Seasoned with Grace, Unboxed also provides healthy relationship training and leadership development for businesses, churches, and community organizations. For a free consultation to discuss your team's needs, please contact us at our website at swg-unboxed.org. That's swg-unboxed.org.